Hey everybody, it's Dan Moore with Staffing Monthly, and I wanted to talk to you about sales this month and specifically a strategic approach to be able to really improve the output. I think a lot of times as sales leaders, we are focused on the wrong thing. Now, I will tell you right out of the gate, the number one thing, the absolute best thing, the best tactic, the best strategy, whatever you want to call it, the secret weapon, the number one best thing that you can do to increase your sales and even grow your existing clients tremendously is provide quality service. Hands down. That is the number one thing you can do. If you are delivering quality service, I mean, you are listening to your customers' needs, you really get it, you're aligning with their processes, you are finding talent that really matches the culture and the process and really just the environment that your clients have, and you're finding the right people and you're prepping them the right way, and you're getting them in there and they're lasting and they are performing and they are some of the best talent that your clients have ever had work there. That right there, that is the essence of a salesperson's dream, because when you have that consistently and you have that track record and you have the data to back it up and you have a lot of testimonials from happy clients and all that, like that right there gives your sales team the confidence to go out and sell and believe in the product that they're actually selling, right? And they believe in the value that it's providing to the clients, because the clients will openly discuss it, right? They'll openly share, happily talk about, the benefits of partnering with your organization. So the number one thing that any and every staffing and recruiting agency should do if they really want to improve sales is just hyper focus on the quality of your delivery, the product, the recruiting, right? That's it. That being said, I'd be remiss if I didn't start to tell you about some of the other techniques that you can look on to optimize the sales part of this process. Because if you're a sales leader, you can't always just default back to the recruiters have to do their job, because the salespeople have skin in the game. They have responsibility to the growth of the organization and providing the opportunities that recruiters fill. Or if you're a full desk, you've got that responsibility to create those opportunities and then fill it. You can't have one without the other, right? So they go together. Sales has this obligation. And when I was thinking about, my process, the way that I approach the sales process, I break everything down into a series of steps, phases, if you will, right? And it's like when you look at the sales phase, it starts, technically it starts with marketing and market awareness, but we're going to focus on that in another session. But at the beginning of the sales process, you have prospect identification, right? You have to get really granular knowing like what is a good company. I've talked ad nauseum about this in some of my other videos and sessions about, really defining what good criteria is for you and your organization. But once you have really great and really strong ideal candidate profile, and then you do a really good job of doing prospect selection. Maybe you're working with some of the data platforms out there like ZoomInfo or Lucia, Seamless, Apollo, any number of those places where you might be able to get your prospect data, or you're using LinkedIn to really do the research to figure out who your decision makers are that fit within your ideal candidate profile. Again, done workshops on that. That's a key part. That's the beginning of that process, is putting those ideal prospects into the top of the funnel, right? And this is where, for most part, other than some of the more advanced tools that are coming out now, it's been a little bit hazy. And the top of the funnel activity, this is your prospecting. This is really the first work, if you will, that the salespeople do. That's not just like research and prospect identification. This is the work. This is the emails they're sending out. This is the cold calls they're making. This is the networking events they're going to. This is the in-person drops they're doing. All of those things are prospecting, right? That's the top of the funnel that they're actually doing. And it takes skill and technique to be able to do those things really, really well. And the goal of that phase, which we're going to talk about more extensively here in a few minutes, but the goal of that phase is ultimately to get a meeting, right? When you're doing prospecting, a secondary acceptable goal is to get more information that might lead to a meeting, but the end goal of all of that prospecting work is to get a meeting with a potential client of yours that fits your criteria for good, right? And then when you're in that meeting, this is the next phase. This is the sales meeting phase. And it might be one meeting, it might be a series of meetings, whatever it is, whatever your model is. If you go in and you do discovery and then you present solutions, or if it's like a one meeting and then I'm going to submit a proposal, or if it's a series of meetings that have to work through, committees and up to the decision makers, whatever that is, the sales meeting phase is its own phase. And there's certain techniques that you have to focus on to improve your efficacy there. But the ultimate goal of the sales meeting phase is to submit a proposal, right? Secondary goal, disqualify the prospect. Say, hey, they're not a fit. This is not good for us. So we are not going to work together and you're going to choose not to submit the proposal, right? One of those two things are the ideal outcome, the goal that you're going for. Once you move into that next phase, which is the proposal phase, sometimes this is submit the proposal, get it signed, get it back. And it's a super short phase. Sometimes it's an RFP. Sometimes it's a proposal with negotiation and then a counter and all of this stuff. So the proposal phase can be short, it can be long, it can be simple, it can be complex. This is really more about understanding how to negotiate, how to navigate those loopholes. But this is the phase where understanding buying questions and buying intent versus just blind negotiation, trying to get a better deal, trying to avoid being sold, like those kind of things, and what is what, and having to stand on the value, and then having an intense process rigor, right? When you're going through the proposal phase, this is really where your biggest sense of urgency actually should lie in the process, right? Because once you submit that proposal, this is really like the first step of limbo because the prospect then typically feels like they have all of the leverage. They feel like they've learned everything from you that they need to. They formed all of the conclusions and, thoughts or insights that they think that they need. They sort of built their picture in their mind based on what they already knew, their assumptions and what you shared. And now the power is in their court to decide to sign, counter, whatever it might be. So the prospect feels the most empowered in this phase. So you need to have a sense of urgency and rigor to move through this phase because if you let it simmer, eventually the prospect is either going to invite competition in or consider other alternatives to your solution, or maybe just get busy with something else and just do nothing, which truly is one of the worst things. After the proposal phase, the ultimate goal of the proposal phase is to get a signed contract, right? And a lot of salespeople, they think that's where the sales process actually stops. It's really not. You're just about nearing the midway of kind of the lifetime sales process. But once you actually get to that signed contract, now you have to move into the onboarding. This is really, really key. You have to make sure that you're following your client or your company process for setting them up the right way. And it should be quick. You should have a quick process to go from signing it because once they sign that, that's when the commitment to use you and work with you and start building a partnership is the strongest. The further from you get from the signature of that contract to when you actually start working with them and get them onboarded and get them, integrated with your recruiting team and fulfillment and the process and how to work together, it's going to wane, right? And that becomes your lasting impression. They start to see you as a partner that might not have the urgency it takes to service and meet their needs. So this is really critical. However, this part of the sales process is not over until you get an order and you fill it and you convert that contract into a billing client, right? That really gets to the midpoint of what I consider the sales process because now you've gone through prospect identification, all of your prospecting activities, going through the sales meeting phase, going through the proposal phase, going through the contract and onboarding phase, getting to the billing client phase. From there, sales turns into account management, relationship building and development, and value-added services where you can grow that account, right? And that's a whole other conversation for a different day. But what I want to focus on today is how do you get the most out of this sales process? And I believe that most sales managers are focusing in the wrong areas when it's time to look for serious improvement. And I'm going to show you why I think this. There's actually two glaring examples that came to me recently that just kind of light bulb moment. It's like, yeah, this is exactly what's going on in the sales process. One is in golf. I was actually out golfing with my friend Larry, and he was telling me, we were all focusing on like how far we could drive and all of this stuff. And like, spoiler, I'm not the longest off the tee, right? That's just not my game. But he made this statement that I think I had heard before, but it just hit a little different in this moment. And you've probably heard this. He goes, you drive for show, you putt for dough. And I was like, what does that really mean? And he's like, really? He's like, in any 18 holes, you might use your driver 15 times, 14 times. He's like, you're really not using that club very much. So when you think about your score, the number of strokes that you take playing it around to golf, for those of you that aren't golfers out there, bear with me. I have a different example coming up next. But for when you think of all the strokes that make up the golf score, the driver really, while it's not an unimportant club, it is really important to hit straight in the fairway. That definitely sets the rest of it up nicely. It's really a small percentage of your shots. believe it or not, most strokes for the average golfer, not the pros, and maybe it's for them too, comes from the putting game. Drive for show, putt for dough. That's where you make your money. And I'm like, that's interesting. You have to really optimize that. If you can actually improve your putting game, your score you'll have a greater impact on your score than maybe some of the other parts, whether it be the drive, the mid-range, or even your approach or when you're on the green, right? So that's really what I took from that. I'm like, wow, how do we apply that to the sales process? I'm going to show you in a second. But another thing right around the same time that actually hit me was I recently attended the Aviante Connect conference, and during the keynote with CEO Rishabh Malhotra, he was talking all about, the place of the platform in the industry. But he said this thing to me, not to me. I felt like he was speaking to me, but he really said it to everybody, to the entire room of hundreds and hundreds of people. To me, it felt like, hey, he just said this thing to me. So, Rishabh, if you ever are watching this, thank you for that. But he talked about Sir Dave Brailsford. And Sir Dave Brailsford actually took over the British cycling team in 2002. And in this point, he approached this with something that is very unconventional at the time. His goal was to get 1% improvement in every little thing and down to the minutia of detail, including the habit of washing hands. But they would literally look like, how can we get 1% better, tire wear, 1% better speed, whatever it might be. Like, and I'm not a cyclist, you can tell. I'm not a golfer either, actually. You can probably tell that too. But he would look, how do we get just 1% improvement across the board? And I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. I think most people would be like, well, 1% is not even worth it, right? But when you add up in a series of processes or a complex machine like a bicycle where there's a lot of moving parts that you're trying to get 1% improvement from, that 1% adds up and it makes a significant difference. And that's actually was the turning point for when the British Cycling Club went on to become really the dominant force, win the Olympic gold medals. And it was really because of that mentality. I know I only cited two examples, but my favorite reference to this is Billy Beane and Moneyball. I love that movie. I like the concept of data and how he really used this. He's like, on base percentage. And I don't know if he coined the phrase or where I heard this, but I aligned it to this movie was, base hits win ball games, and that was his whole thing. And he literally dominated Major League Baseball with the smallest payroll, kind of what most people would consider a scrub team, but he was dominating and setting records because he took a data analytical approach and he understood that really the desired end result sometimes is hidden in the smallest areas that often get overlooked. So that's what I want to talk about today. If you're still with me, thank you for still being here. We're going to get into the sales process. So going back, just as a quick reminder, the process is I lay it out. This is how I break my process down. Yes, it does start with prospect identification and building out campaigns, but really the first part of work that we measure is going to be the quantity of prospects that we have, and then the prospecting phase. And we're always looking at what is our conversion rate coming out of the prospecting phase. So if we were going to prospect 2,000 prospects in a year, if you had a sales rep that was going to take 2,000 prospects through whatever campaigns that you run, whether you're doing a series of 30 days or you're doing random acts of sales, or you've got a really nice, structured 12-week campaign, whatever your model is, if you took 2,000 prospects through your campaigns throughout the year and you had a 2% conversion rate, meaning you converted 2,000 prospects into meetings, this would be kind of low, especially if you're using a multi-touch campaign, but it would result in 40 meetings, right, throughout the year, which again, not a lot. You're talking about three, but who knows? Maybe you're selling into, middle market, longer sales cycle, whatever it is. But just for the data sake, if you have 2,000 prospects and you actually only convert 2% of that very low number into meetings, you have 40 meetings. Okay. I'm going to show this on a slide. I think it's better to visualize this here. Let me do an obligatory Excel spreadsheet share. So if we're looking at this here, just to show you where you should be focusing on this process, you get 2,000 prospects, 2% conversion, 40 of those are going to turn into meetings, right? Let's say that out of those meetings, you convert 70% of them, right? So 7 out of 10 of those meetings, or the clients that get put in those meeting phase, turn into proposals, and you send 28 proposals out. right? And let's say out of those 28 proposals, 80% of them come back as signed contract, right? 20% for whatever reason you didn't close. They changed their mind, the price wasn't right, whatever it might be, you didn't close them, but you close 80%, you get really 22-ish contracts back signed. That's not a client yet. That's still a contract. For some inexplicable reason, not every signed contract turns into a billing client. There are a variety of reasons, but let's just say in this scenario that 80% of those contracts turn into billing clients. For some reason, you only get 18 to convert into billing clients. Maybe of the other four, they closed the order out, or they went into a hiring freeze, or maybe the people you sent just they didn't select, they didn't think it was good, whatever it is, but you end up with 18 billing clients, right? You know, I don't know, is good, whether it's good or not is up to you and your company, but just for example, that's 18. Now I want to show that most sales managers that I've encountered over the years, when they're trying to improve this number, they usually do it in two areas. One, they will say do more work, meaning prospect more companies, right? Or they will try to hyper focus on pricing, and they'll try to say, hey, maybe we're losing out on this the proposal phase because our price is too high, and they'll start to reduce their prices, right? Anyone in here feel like this industry is over commoditized? Yeah, it's because it's happening in this phase, because that's outside of saying, hey, do more work. This is typically where people go to first, is they cut price. And they think if they cut price, they're going to increase their conversion percent, which sometimes they do, right? Then what they typically go to is they say, okay, well, we need to train on more sales meeting. We need to basically teach people how to sell better, ask better questions, all this stuff. That stuff is really, really important. And it is so critical to have professional salespeople, and how well your clients view you as an expert, really, it correlates directly to the types of questions that you ask, right? So it's an important spot to focus on, but that's typically where they go next, and they might do in-house training. They might do a lot of role practice, which I'm a huge supporter of. They might engage a firm like Butler Street, or work with Tom Erb or Mark Winter. They might work with, Shannon Kahn or Kim Henderson, or any of these great sales trainers out there to really get process in place, and figure out better ways to sell, which is all great. That's really good, training to have for your salespeople. But I'm going to pour a little bit of water on it in a second, and show that that's not the only area that you should focus on. Rarely what happens, very rare, is people don't look, or sales managers don't really look at how the techniques of doing a walk-in and a drop are being done, and how you can optimize it. How a cold call is being made. There's a lot of emphasis on cold calls, but there's not as much role practice. I think there's more reluctance to make cold calls and digitize our outreach, so we go into the emails. And what's interesting is we're not, again, very rare. There are some agencies that do this, but the vast majority of our industry is not actually approaching the email prospecting with a marketing mindset. Like, their way to improve conversion rates here is to send more emails, right? And that's really not the way that you do it, because if you think about only converting 2% of your prospecting attempts, that's 98% of your prospects that you maybe left a bad impression with, because your prospecting effort is your first impression with them. Does that make sense? Are you following that there? So this is the area that I believe we need to take a stronger look at. I'm going to reference a tool. They're also in this magazine in a minute, but I just want to show this. If we have 2,000 prospects here, right, and we convert 2% of them into meetings, which we get 40, 70% rate, conversion to proposals, 28, 80% conversion rate to contracts, 22 contracts, 80% of those convert to billing clients, we get 18 clients, right? Let's say, I'm going to take this, just make this 2,000. Same thing. We'll say we start the front end here, and you work on sales meetings, right? And you're like, hey, we're going to improve the way that we sell, and pro tip, figure out what your unique value proposition is that you're truly delivering on, that great quality service like I talked about in the front end, and start figuring out how you can ask questions that uncover a pain point that would lead to the customer needing your unique value proposition, and then how to weave that into the sales process through questions and statements, right? Such a pro tip for actually putting that messaging of your UVP in through the entire process. But let's say we improve this by 75% from 70, right? Something in here, getting the meeting to end in a proposal improves. We go from 28 proposals out to 30. Okay, we increase by 5% in this one area, 5%, and we get two more proposals out. Okay, not saying that's not a good thing. It's better than nothing, and that improvement is important, and it's certainly important when you compound it with others. But standalone, an extra two proposals out a year might not make the difference with you hitting your goals, right? But let's go here. Let's add it to the other side. Let's say we improve our conversion rate to contract, meaning the proposal gets returned to us with a signature and they're looking to engage. Let's say we add 5 points here. We go from 80% conversion to 85%, right? Now we're talking going from 22 to 26. Again, this is compounding the conversion rate to proposals. This is like better meetings, get you two extra proposals. So you got more proposals to work with. You increase that conversion percentage. So now you're at 26. So now you've got four extra contracts coming back, right? Huge. Okay. Four extra contracts. That's great. Again, that's compounding effect. This is what Sir Dave Brailsford was talking about. You start adding those improvements together. Here, let's say we improve the conversion to billing client, meaning we get quicker onboarding or better understanding, and we can actually convert, not 80%, but 85. Now we're talking about having 22 billing clients in a year. So I want to break this down for a second. We improved the conversion of proposals, meaning how well we manage the sales meeting process, by 5%. We improved the conversion rate from proposals to contract by 5%. Sometimes that's cutting rate. We improved the conversion rate to billing client by 5%. And those focusing 5% increases on those three areas gets us four extra billing clients. That's not nothing. Obviously, clients they have, good first year value, great long-term value. They should. Gives you an opportunity to nurture and grow. That's a good thing. That is good. But I want to show you a difference here. Let's say that I'm just going to put these all back. Remember the number 4, right? That was our increase by only focusing on that half of the puzzle. Let's say that I'm going to leave the prospect the same. Let's say we don't just bash your salespeople and say, do more work. We need more leads, right? Let's say we leave this one alone. What if we actually increase the conversion rate to meeting? Not by 5%, but just by 1. So from 2% to 3. Going up 1 point. That will get you 60 meetings. It's a busier salesperson. Sales managers will feel better about that. It's hard to report up to leadership that, you get some zeros in the meeting box on the scorecard each week. But here, 60 meetings, and if you just convert the rest of the way through, now you're at 27 billing clients, and you didn't have to improve in any of these other areas. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm saying in this example you didn't. You would have 9 extra new clients billing. More than double what you had if you put your efforts focusing over here, right? So, and I'm not saying not to focus on this. I'm going to show you the compound effect of all of it, just to kind of pay, honor and respect to the approach that Sir Dave Brailsford had with the British cycling team and Billy Bean, who I believe recently passed away, to kind of their concept of using data and numbers to do this. So here, if you had to pick one or the other, if you improve this, you're going to get double the improvement output than if you improve these by 5% each. So for my money, if I had to focus and get really good in one area, meaning I need to improve in one area, and that's all the resource I have, I'm going to double down on the improvement of it, it's going to be right here. How do I convert more of my prospecting attempts? And I'm going to tell you the main way to do this is to improve your messaging. How do you improve your messaging? There's a couple ways, but the first thing you need to do is stop prospecting like a salesperson and start prospecting like a marketer. Okay. If you think about what marketing is, and it dominates the world, right? I mean, literally everything is influenced by marketing. Literally, there's a new category called influencer marketing, right? And that's not so new, but it's relatively new in the grand scheme of marketing. So when you look at this, it's like, okay, how do I do that? Well, first off, maybe your cold call sounds too salesy. Maybe we live in a world that's been conditioned to get messaging like marketing, right? When I was trained in the olden days, a long time ago, on how to make a cold call, I was initially trained with these concepts of be on an even playing field, don't go in subservient, show respect for the time, things like, can I take 30 seconds of your time to tell you why I'm calling, right? Create that mystery and intrigue, right? And Some of that does still work, right? Some of that respect. I'm not saying don't be respectful, or the trendy word of today is don't be demure, right? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is marketing has conditioned our brains in a way that we're looking for this model, the hook story offer model. You hook them with something. We've got that thumb swipes amount of time, a nanosecond or 3 nanoseconds to get someone's attention. You got to hook it. Think about when you're scrolling on social media, which most people have been rewired this way. What catches your attention and makes you watch the whole video, and what makes you just instantly scroll before the video even really gets started, right? Think about what was that hook? How do you word that into your cold call, right? How do you get that hook and then engage them with a story? If you look at the most viral social media posts out there that are video and even other mediums, but there's a good hook. It's something that draws your attention in, and it usually goes into some sort of story. They're sort of telling you something, right? Maybe they're educating you, maybe they're entertaining you through a story, whatever it is. And then at the end, there's something. I think on most social media posts, it's a letdown, but usually if they're selling something, there's some sort of offer that because they've got you intrigued and you're willing to take action on something. Start framing your cold calls in that format. Emails. Test your emails. Email marketers or digital marketers are maniacal about their email copy. They will test subject lines. They will leave the copy completely the same, and they will do A/B testing where they send out to half their prospect list, one email with one subject line, and then they'll send the same exact email to the other half of the list with a different subject line, and they will measure open rates. Which subject line was getting more opens? And then they will start tweaking little words within the copy, and they will A/B test. They'll say, okay, well, this was the best headline or the subject line that opened, so now we're going to send 2 emails with the same subject line, and we're going to change some copy in each one and see which one converts the best. And they're always doing this because they know if they can improve their cold call and they can improve their emails and they can improve their marketing context, the content that they leave behind when they're doing their drops, or they know like what is going to get you more in the door. Maybe it's cupcakes in your area, maybe it's pretzels. I don't know, but what is that thing that's going to set you apart, that's going to align with your messaging, but also that's going to convert the best to getting a meeting? Measure that stuff, because that is where your greatest gain is going to come from in this area, right? And I will tell you, I'm going to do a shout out, no endorsement. I'm just really impressed with this tool. They're actually demoed in this very issue, Sourcewell. This is where they live. They actually measure the efficacy of emails. They allow you to automate your prospecting campaigns and do A/B testing within the actual campaigns. And you can actually try different campaign styles and phone calls and LinkedIn outreach and LinkedIn messages and measure how all of those things are working and which ones are actually getting you the best conversion rate, so you can stack together the best prospecting campaign. And if you do that and you measure there and you're successful in just increasing your conversions by 1%, going from 2% conversion to 3%, you're going to increase the number of meetings you get by 50%. Now let's go back through and say you added in that sales training piece and you actually increase your conversion rate to proposal 75%. And let's say that your conversion rate to contract, meaning the proposals you send out, you get 85% of those. Let's say that you actually get more back, not because you cut praise and decided to commoditize your agency, but because you focus more on value selling and aligning the value that you provide to the challenges that your prospect is facing, and they see the value and they want to partner. And let's say that you have a sense of urgency, you get them onboarded quick, you got this really strong onboarding process, you're really good at getting people that service delivery, and let's say that we convert 85% of them versus 80 into billing clients. Now we're talking about a difference of nearly double the output, double. And that's how you need to be maniacal to focus on this level of detail in optimizing your process. If you can get 1% increase in the conversion rate to meetings, increase your rate to proposals, increase your rate to contracts, increase your conversion rate to billing clients, you can nearly double the output. And guess what? You weren't actually prospecting any more leads. What's really cool is if you dial this in and you start to learn how many clients you need to hit goal and how many clients you can successfully manage, you can actually dial this number back, and your salespeople can do less but better work. And trust me, when this number goes backwards, the rest of the numbers go up, because they can be more focused in the process and improving there. So I just wanted to take a minute to dig into that process. I know that sports analogies and spreadsheets are not everybody's favorite thing, but it really drives the point home. If you are struggling right now with sales, if you were like, hey, we're having a hard time, which I think most of the industry is, I want to encourage you to break your process down just like that. Look at the prospecting phase and see, what is my conversion percentage to meetings? How effective are you in the meeting phase? What's your conversion phase or conversion percentage coming out of that phase into the proposal phase? How many proposals are you converting into contracts? And then start to look at how can you get improvements there. If you can improve the efficacy in each one of those phases, sometimes by not very much, you can nearly double your output on the same efforts. And that is how you scale your staffing agency through sales. I hope you found this useful. A couple of shout outs. Definitely go check out Source Whale. This is not a paid endorsement. I just think their product is really cool and it really aligns. It helps give sales managers the visibility into that part of the process that we just talked about. I think it's pretty cool. I think salespeople will like it. I would love to hear your feedback. I don't have any real world experience with them. I only met them recently at a conference. So if you have experience with them or you're thinking about and you sign up with them, definitely let me know. I would love to get your feedback on them as well. And also focus on that training piece. Another shout out I have to do is if you really are in the staffing sales space, you cannot miss the Staffing Sales Summit. If you've not heard about it, check it out. Send me a message, look me up on LinkedIn, whatever. But the Staffing Sales Summit is the only staffing conference in our industry that's focused exclusively on sales and sales management and improving the sales function of a staffing agency. And it's going to be in February in Orlando. So for most of the country, that's a great place to be in February. So definitely go check that out. Thank you for following this long in the video. Leave your comments. Let me know what I missed, what I got wrong, and I would love to connect with you.